Hello students. So, we had discussed in our previous class the ecosystem types. Did you check? Anyone, could you understand how to categorize or identify those ecosystems? I hope yes. And today let us have some more understanding, detailed understanding on these ecosystem types through case examples. And then definitely you will not only be able to understand them, but you will be interested also. So, what we discussed in last class are the ecosystem types, their key factors and 5 major ecosystem types, the land based, aquatic, transitional, microbial and the artificial ones. Before going into the details of the examples, I would like to bring to your attention the very important role of these ecosystems or character, I will say, that is the ecosystem interconnectivity. Understanding ecosystem interconnectedness begins with grasping a simple yet profound truth that nature operates as a unified whole, not as a isolated fragments. This information is very important because if we are disturbing one ecosystem at certain points, it is actually going to have certain other feedback on other ecosystems as well. So, if you are nurturing something or if you are disturbing some ecosystem, it is going to have a very connected result. So, definition of ecosystem interconnectedness as its most basic is the recognition that all living organisms and non-living organisms, that means biotic and abiotic, within an ecosystem are linked and influence each other, they shape each other. Ecosystem interconnectedness in its simplest definition highlights the mutual influence and reliance between all elements within an ecological system. Just take an example of forest. Trees are there in a forest. They provide shelter and food for animals. Animal waste then enriches the soil, which in turn again nourishes the trees. This straightforward give and take relation illustrates a primary level of interconnectedness, and there are so many subtle interconnectedness in the ecosystem. I would like to bring back that image once again in a slightly different form, that is that land and the sea. And here we would like to understand that ecosystem interconnectivity. If everything goes as normal, then there is the coral reefs here, then the sea grasses here, mangroves here, and we have the land. So, in the land there will be trees as well as the people, the habitat. So, everything goes right, and then we can see the what different type of interactions can happen in an ecosystem between two different ecosystems. So, that is something which we understand by now quite clearly. Now, if any disturbances happen, let us say the coral reef is now bleached. So, it will not offer any further ecosystem services like storm buffering or fish or organic material it will not provide or the habitats. So, that disturbances will come which will influence the seagrass. And let us say in that scenario there is a very strong cyclone. If that cyclone comes and the coral reefs are not there, seagrasses are not actually active that way, mangroves are also almost lost, then definitely the land will get the very direct impact of it. Not only trees, but also the habitat. So, whatever losses this particular cyclone will bring, it will depend on how beautifully we have maintained this interconnectedness or else we have disrupted. So, depending on that, this result will be in front of us. So, I think in today's time we always see in the newspapers that there is a very strong cyclone and so many properties lost. one of the major problem is we understood or misunderstood this ecosystem interconnectivity. So, there I was trying to show you an example of ecosystem interconnectivity between two different major types, that is the terrestrial as well as the aqua type. Here let us see within that human modified systems also there is so much of interconnectivity, like industrial one and the agricultural one, both are man-made. So, how this agricultural one will go for the crop and that crop ingestion through this cattles, that will come back to the system, the ingestion then it will come to the human beings through the milk and the crop also, and then that will also come down to decomposed one, and this industrial one is actually going to bring lot of pollution into the system. It will also bring polluted water into the agricultural system. So, that way if they are not maintaining their pollution level, then the quality of the water and soil will get degraded, and that will impact all these ecosystem components. So, industrial and agricultural ecosystem, they are always having a very strong interconnectedness. So, after this discussion on the interconnectedness, let us come back or continue rather the yesterday's discussion on the ecosystem types. And today we will not only discuss the characters, we will also discuss subtypes with good examples, so that we can remember, we can connect all around us whatever different ecosystems we see, experience, interact. So, first one, as you know, terrestrial, then the aquatic, then the transitional, and the last one is the microbial ecosystems, which we will be discussing in today's class. Artificial or human modified ecosystem, that is urban, agriculture, aquaculture and industrial systems, we will discuss in next modules when we will be discussing the urban ecosystem. So, this is a slide which we have already seen, the ecosystems and the types: forest, grassland, desert, tundra, freshwater, the lenticulotic, marine, ocean, coral reefs and estuaries, and the transitional, the wetlands, mangroves, and microbial system. I hope you have gone through that image. Please go through it, it will help today's discussion as well. Terrestrial ecosystems. Forest ecosystem we have discussed. Under that forest ecosystem also there are several different type of subsystems like tropical, temperate, boreal. I was showing you another image also in yesterday's class. So, do you remember that? Latitudinal position near the tropics, beyond the tropics are the temperate region, and in the Arctic region is the boreal region. So, forest ecosystem we know the dense tree growth, they are very critical for the carbon sequestration and they regulate the global climate. What tropical rainforest is doing? They are actually in very high rainfall areas, they have immense biodiversity options and multi-layered vegetations. So, the forest floor and forest canopy, they are having several different types of vegetation in between. Amazon rainforest, I think all of us we have heard about that, maybe some of you have also seen it. Temperate or deciduous forest located in the regions with moderate rainfall and distinct seasons. These forests have trees that shed their leaves in the fall, so deciduous. Deciduous forests in the North America or Europe are the good examples. Boreal forest or taiga forest, they are found in high latitude, colder regions with long winters, but they are also vegetations. Beyond that, we do not find vegetations. These are the dominated by coniferous trees. You remember the coniferous, that particular shape, spruce, pines, firs. there are good examples of boreal forest in Canada, in Russia, and this is a good graphics again on the forest example and its importance. Forest ecosystems are critical for carbon sequestration, regulating global climate and supporting biodiversity. Let us go for few good examples on these forest ecosystems. Amazon rainforests, they are global biodiversity powerhouses regulating climate and producing significant amount of oxygen for the globe. And I think recently all of us, we actually read that news that Brazil has taken a strong decision and they have implemented it also, that they are cutting certain parts of the rainforest, and the world is quite anxious about it. Deciduous forest in North America, they support diverse food webs, enrich soil with leaf litter and regulate seasonal water cycles. Boreal forest or taiga, they are the largest terrestrial carbon sink. So, very important, stabilizing global climate and supporting cold adapted wildlife. The second terrestrial ecosystem, if we remember from yesterday's discussion, is the grassland. So, we remember also the types savanna, prairie and steppe. Now, let us look where they are found. At the tropics, the grassland with scattered trees, that is the savanna grassland, found in regions with distinct wet and dry seasons, the African savanna. Prairie, that is available in the North America, temperate grassland with fertile soil and moderate rainfall. So, the Great Plains of North America is a good example. So, we can also find the dry grassland in the regions with low rainfall, like the steppes of Eurasia. So, grasslands support large herbivores and their predators, and they play vital role in carbon storage and soil formation. Now, let us see the good examples of them. African savanna, they support immense megafauna, big animals, biodiversity, regulate water cycles and distinct seasons, and maintain vital carbon rich soils. If anyone has visited African savanna, they will come back and they will tell you how many big animals they have actually been able to see. The next one, steppes, if you remember the dry one we discussed, they maintain hardy drought adapted plant and animal communities and are significant yet fragile carbon sinks in their extensive soils. Prairies, they boost fertile soils for agriculture, support diverse plants and animal lives, crucial for carbon sequestration. The next one we will be discussing the major type under the land based one is the desert. Arid region, very less rainfall, sparse vegetation. But here also we can find two different type of deserts, hot and dry desert and the cold desert. Hot and dry deserts experience very high daytime temperature and low rainfall. The example can be Sahara. Cold deserts characterized by cold winters and relatively mild summers, Gobi Desert. These deserts are very important because they support specialized plants and animal species that are highly adapted to water conservation and temperature extremes. And they play a crucial role in regulating atmospheric gases. Sahara Desert, Africa, very famous. They support specialized harsh biodiversity and act as a global dust source. It influences the ocean nutrient cycle through upwelling and atmospheric composition. The Gobi Desert in Asia, partly in China and partly in Mongolia. So, Gobi like deserts maintain hardy cold adapted plant and animal lives and act as a critical yet fragile archive of geological and climatic history. The last terrestrial ecosystems type we are going to discuss is the tundra ecosystems. We have already talked about it, cold treeless biomes, and they are having the permanently frozen soil, permafrost. Arctic tundra and alpine tundra, they are the major subdivisions. So, Arctic tundra located in the polar regions with extremely cold temperatures like in Canada and Russia. Whereas in alpine tundra, we find this as the mountain tops, high altitudes in Alps or Himalayas. Tundra ecosystem have low biodiversity, but support unique plant and animal species adapted to extreme cold. They are important for regulating the earth's temperature and storing carbon in the form of permafrost. Now, let us see a good example from the Arctic tundra in Russia, which acts as a massive global carbon sink by storing vast amounts of carbon in its permafrost and helps cool the planet by reflecting sunlight. Whereas the alpine tundra serve as critical water towers for continents, capturing and storing water as snow and ice that feed the headwaters for major river systems like river Ganges. Aquatic system, the next system we have to discuss. For the examples are freshwater ecosystem. Already we discussed the lakes and ponds, that is the lentic system, and the rivers and streams, that is the lotic system. And we will importance of these freshwater ecosystems are crucial for drinking water, agriculture and habitat for biodiversity. The examples for the lake system is the Great Lakes North America represent one such good example from the freshwater, which are vital sources for fresh water, and we can use it for the drinking purpose, industrial purpose and transportation. It supports immense regional biodiversity and microclimates. Another good example is the flowing one, that is the Amazon river, largest river system by discharge, crucial for global hydrological cycle, supporting unparalleled biodiversity and regulating regional climate. So, you can easily understand these examples are not only serving the purpose of that particular area, they are also having the regional influences. The next aquatic ecosystem example we will be discussing are the marine ecosystems, coral reefs, we discussed estuaries and the open oceans. Now, let us see the good examples from the marine ecosystem, the Great Barrier Reef, Australia. It is the world's largest coral reef system, hotspot of marine biodiversity and natural barrier against ocean currents. Good example of the ocean system is the Pacific Ocean. It is the largest and deepest ocean basin regulating global climate and weather patterns, acting as a massive carbon sink and supporting a vast array of marine life. Estuaries, you remember, it is meeting between the fresh water and the marine water. Good example we selected, that is the Chesapeake Bay in US, which provides critical nursery habitat for commercially important marine species, filters pollutants from vast watersheds and supports the diverse wildlife. So, from this you can see three different examples from the marine ecosystem, and they are actually serving so differently, but they are again having influences on each other. Next ecosystem we will be discussing, that is the transitional ecosystem. Transitional ecosystem we discussed, that is between two major systems, that is the terrestrial and the aqua system, wetlands and the mangroves. Let us first go for the importance of these transitional ecosystems, which are vital for biodiversity hotspots and nursery grounds, and they protect shorelines, purify water and regulate climate by sequestering carbon. The examples for them, for the wetland, Keoladev National Park, Rajasthan. Have you heard about it? It's a Ramsar site, UNESCO World Heritage listed one. It's a vital wintering ground for thousands of migratory birds, supporting immense avian biodiversity and water purification. So, it is having a seasonality as well. The other transitional ecosystem, that is the Sundarban, the mangrove forest, the largest mangrove forest on earth. It is shared by India and Bangladesh, which acts as an unparalleled natural shield protecting millions from cyclones and tsunamis, while providing a unique habitat for the Royal Bengal tiger and others, and it regulates the regional climate as well. So, when we go for the wetland is one of the most important example from the transitional ecosystem basket. Let us know about it in details. We can first try to understand the difference between upland ecosystem and the wetland ecosystem. Upland ecosystem is where the elevation is there, and wetland ecosystem is where always there will be some amount of water. Three major components which creates an wetland ecosystem, that is water, soil and plants. So, water is always important, always required, which results in wet or flooded soil. Soils are dominated by the anaerobic process here, and the biota, particularly rooted vascular plants. So, very unique species we find here that are adapted to life in flooded anaerobic environments. So, they create altogether this wetland. So, we will be discussing them one by one. First one is the water component. Water sources, from where wetland gets the water. It can get from precipitation, surface water can inflow, groundwater also can inflow. Wetland water cycle, inflow happens as mentioned just now, and the outflow also happens through evapotranspiration and outflows. The difference between this inflow and outflow is the storage, which is being stored in that wetland, and that is stored as soil moisture, surface water as well as groundwater. But sometimes this wetland will have naturally or through certain impacts can have the dry conditions as well. Seasonal variations, maybe there are some low rainfall or very high evaporation rate. So, there can be the dry wetland scenario. Human activities like drainage for agriculture or some construction can also create the dry wetland. Climate changes are also impacting these days water availability in wetlands. So, what happens? Let us have a look at the hydrology, that the balance between the inputs and outputs and how it is getting maintained. So, inputs and outputs, as we have discussed in just now, it has to be maintained properly so that the water budget for that wetland is going to be sustainable. There will be inundation period, and for that we need to know the frequency, like how often the wetlands gets flooded, duration, how long the wetland stays flooded or it is getting dried or not, timing, seasonal patterns of flooding, and all these actually later on we can see that they have a very strong link with the phytoplanktons, and they, depending on that, the food is going to invite the migratory birds or others. Role of hydrology determines the system's health, improves the water quality, provides the downstream flood control and recharges the local groundwater aquifer. Soil is very important for wetland, and this is also very unique. Hydric soil that will have the moisture, saturated soil may be permanent or maybe in certain seasons. Anaerobic conditions, because there will be water, so oxygen may be less in the water. Dark color, because lot of decomposition which are very slow, that happens, so it may be of dark color. Organic rich mineral soils, oxidized rhizospheres, very interesting. Small unique pockets of oxygen is there in the roots of these adapted wetland plants, which really controls lot of good exchanges, chemical exchanges. Organic accretions, and the soil is actually going to have the very strong role for several functions, like it can anchor plants, store water and nutrients, filter pollutants, and act as a major carbon storage system. It is also having a methane storage system. Wetlands vegetation component, unique characteristics because the soil and water is different. Hydrophytic vegetation, the habitat for these water loving plants that have adapted to thrive in wetland conditions. Physical adaptation like hollow stems for air transportation, floating leaves for sunlight, and shallow or exposed roots. This type of adaptation is quite common in the wetlands vegetation. Physiological adaptation also we have seen in the wetlands vegetation, internal processes such as anaerobic respiration that allows roots to function with very little oxygen, which is very unique again. So, depending on all these, we can see the vegetation types can be of different types, like obligate. Almost 99% they grow in wetlands, like water lilies. Facultative, they may grow in wetlands, they may also grow in non-wetlands. And the last one is the upland type, that they will almost never grow in wetlands, they will go only in the uplands, which I was showing you previously, the uplands where the elevation is there. Role of vegetation: provides food and habitats, filters pollutions, and slows the flood waters, anchors soils and adds oxygen to the soil. So, the last part, microbial ecosystems, is the last ecosystem today we will be discussing with examples. Ecological systems dominated by microorganisms like bacteria and fungi that interact with their environment, and they drive the global nutrient cycles and maintain the ecosystem stability. Two different type of microbiomes I will be discussing today. First one is the soil microbiome, the complex community of microorganisms in soil. They are responsible for decomposition and nutrient cycling, making nutrients available for plants. Like the network of fungi and bacteria in a forest floor that breaks down fallen leaves and helps trees absorb the nutrients. Whereas the gut microbiome is the people, animals, they are having the gut system and the community of microorganisms found in those digestive tracts. They help in digestion and nutrient absorption. The bacteria in a cow's rumen that are essential for breaking down the tough cellulose in grass is one of the most interesting example of this gut microbiome. So, let us see these examples in depth. Mycorrhizal fungi, the unsung heroes of tree care, they are called. This soil microbiome is fundamental for nutrient cycling, plant growth, and overall forest health, driving decomposition and making essential nutrients available. So, I hope you have seen that particular graphics which I was discussing in the last class, where it has been shown how these mycorrhizal fungi are helping not only themselves to get connected, they also help others to get connected. They help roots find water in difficult to access places and also help the trees to communicate. So, they are really playing very important roles, but as they are mostly in the subsoil or in places where we can't see them in our naked eyes, so we don't really appreciate always their roles. Another one, as I said, microbial, I will be discussing that, the bacteria, the gut one, the bacteria in the cow's rumen, the gut microbiome in herbivores like cows. You remember when we had discussed the initial stages, that producer, primary producer and primary consumer. So, cow is a primary consumer. So, what it is doing? It is taking those plants and grasses, and very critical for them to digest and nutrient extraction from them. And who helps them? These gut microbiomes, they help. They enable this conversion of top plant matter into energy and biomass, thus supporting food webs. So, the importance of this microbial ecosystem is fundamentally very significant, as they drive global nutrient cycles and decomposition, forming basis for ecosystem stability and supporting all other life on earth. So, with this, today we would like to look back that what we have learned today. First we started with the ecosystem interconnectivity, and then we have gone for some good examples of all these ecosystem types like forest, grassland, deserts and tundra for the terrestrial one, freshwater and marine for the aquatic one, wetlands and mangroves for the transitional one, and the gut microbiome and the soil microbiome under the microbial ecosystems. And human modified ecosystems we will be discussing in the later modules. So, these are the references for your study further, and thank you.